let's say if today you wanted to use a Node.js functionality or a package in your ASP.NET Core application, you might either look for a ported version of that implementation on GitHub or in any other open source community, or you will just implement one from the scratch. Now, if you wanted to go with the later approach, like implementing it one from the scratch, this is going to be a time consuming task, right? And which can even take days depending on what kind of package you are porting, and it might be possible that you may not end up with the perfect implementation of that, right? So would it not be great if we can just make use of the Node.js package as it is without any making changes to the underlying API or without making any changes in our application code? We just import the package like just we do for the other NuGet packages, and just get started off with that. So the question is, can we do it in ASP.NET Core, right? Can we import an npm or a Node.js package in our ASP.NET application and get it to work? Okay, just call the inlining functions and just make use of those packages, just like the way we do with other libraries that are available for our .NET applications. So can we do that? And if yes, then how we can do that, right? So Microsoft has recently open sourced the JS services repository. I think not recently, but they have done it a long way before, and which you can see it on GitHub. You can just go on GitHub and you see that ASP.NET team has this JavaScript services as the repository where they have open sourced the implementation of this. Okay, and if you scroll down to the README file, you will notice how you can actually make use of this library or this particular service engine in your application so that you can start implementing the Node services or Node.js packages. So here are a few of the packages details that you have. All we are considering about, of which I will be taking care of, is the Microsoft ASP.NET Core Node Services. Okay, so this is the package that we are going to use, so that I can go ahead, get the package from the npm repository or the Node repository and start making use of this. So if you read the first line or the first bullet point, it says this provides a fast and robust way for .NET Core to run JavaScript on the server side inside a Node.js environment, right? Which is a great thing. Now you can use this to consume arbitrary functionality from npm packages at runtime in your ASP.NET Core application, right? The only requisite is that your server, which is going to host your ASP.NET application, should have Node.js installed. So if you go ahead and read throughout this, there are certain prerequisites. You have to have the .NET Core 2.0 at least installed on your web server, and you have the Node.js version 6 or later. That is what it is being supported as of now, right? Anything below this version will not work, and of course .NET 1.1 was not going to work either. So okay, so this is what we have, and I'm going to make use of the Microsoft ASP.NET Core Node Services package and see how it looks like. Okay, how we can make use of a available Node.js package in the repository in our .NET Core. Okay, so let's get started. For this particular demo, I'm making use of the command line and Visual Studio Code. If you have Visual Studio Enterprise, I do have Visual Studio Enterprise though, or any flavor of Visual Studio you have. If you wanted to make use of that, please go ahead and do that. It's just the way I'm using it. If you are interested in making use of the Visual Studio Code just the way I'm using it from the command line, or if you are on Linux or on a Mac machine, it just works the way what fits good for you. Okay, so first thing first, what we have to do is to write a command that will create a new boilerplate code for us, and that would be this command .NET new MVC. So .NET is the command that is get for the SDK. New is we are going to make use of a new, we are creating a new application, and that template we are going to use for our boilerplate code will be MVC, and I'm going to name it Node Services Demo. Okay, so this command will generate a simple ASP.NET Core web application. Okay, and this is a boilerplate code, so which you have been seeing a lot of time. So if I cd into that directory and do a .NET run, it will start a local web server running on localhost 5000 port, any hosting environment is production. I'm not going to change that, or neither I'm going to dwell into the settings of this application, and just that's not the agenda over here. So that's done. Let's go ahead and execute this at localhost 5000, see what happens. Okay, so here's my application. That seems good, right? This is the boilerplate code that we have here, and that's how the simple ASP.NET MVC application looks like. Now that's being done. Let's go ahead and stop the server now. Now to implement or to get these node services installed on this application, what we're going to do is we are going to add the Microsoft ASP.NET Core .NodeServices package, right? So before we do that, just open up in Visual Studio Code. So I'm going to hit the command code space period or dot. This will open up the new instance of Visual Studio Code, and here is my code inside that, right? So before I proceed further with any of these things, or start modifying the code, let's go back and add the package. So the command will be .NET add package Microsoft.ASP.NET Core .NodeServices. Okay, this will add the package to my application. If you are not happy with this command, and if you're not using Visual Studio Code, the easy way to do this, or I should say the another way of doing, is to go to the CS-proc file, this file, and you can just add this line with the version number. People who are using Visual Studio apart from Visual Studio Code, they might get IntelliSense on the version number, so that will be good for them as well. Okay, so we are done with the package installation in our application. Now first thing first, I would like to go and tell the project or tell my application that I'm going to make use of the node services. So to do that, I will go to the startup.cs file, okay, and inside the configure services function, just after the services.add_MVC, and say services.add node services. Okay, so you see that it automatically comes in. If I do this again, you see that it automatically, the IntelliSense automatically notifies that there is a service that is coming from somewhere, or the framework already identifies that there is a different service altogether which can be used here. So you see that the services over here is blank. You can add more of your services or your own implementation as an injection, or inject or configure your pipeline of your calling ASP.NET application just the way you want it to. All right, so once this is added, now we are good to go for the implementation part. But before we do that, I will explain that why this is being here, why we have used this here when we get to the real implementation, and why exactly this line makes a lot of sense, and why it is so important for us to add a services.add node services function in this place. Okay, so once this is done, let's switch gears and create a new JavaScript file where we are going to do the implementation for that. But before that, we need to identify what we are trying to implement. So one of the packages on the web, which is called, I'm just going to close that, which is called Lodash. We go there, lodash.com, and this is one of the packages which is quite famous and is being accompanied by a lot of other packages in the Node.js family, right? So most of the packages, most of the npm packages make use of the Lodash because it comes with very handy built-in functions, or you can say the extensible utilities that comes as a part of this framework, right, or as a part of this library. So I just quickly go to the documentation, and I see, okay, so here is a list of so many functions which you can do with string manipulation, date manipulation, lang, maths functions, number objects, sequential string manipulation, and some other utilities that you can make use of. Now if I have to implement any of these into my programming language, which is C# by default, I may have to rework, I have to write the tests, I have to make sure that it, take into consideration all the instances and everything, which is a time consuming task. So I don't want to do that. I just want to make use of this package itself. So one of the functions that it has in the array function, let's take this one, the underscore dot chunk array. And what it does actually is you give the list of array to it, and you define and you provide the chunk, the length of each chunk that you want to distribute your array into. Okay, so if you have A, B, C, and D, and your chunk size is 2, it says A, B, C, D, like so. Okay, so it's an evenly distribution because we have only four numbers over here, or four elements in an array. If I say 3, you say A, B, C will be a part of one array, and then D, because there are no other any other more elements in the array, it will be just be a lone element in the array. Okay, so that's interesting. That's if you have to implement this in a different programming language, that would be a difficult thing. But let's do this in the same way. Just make use of this function which is already available in a JavaScript form. So going back to Visual Studio, now I'll go here and create a new folder and name it node code. And inside the node code, I will create a file, NodeServices.js. Okay, you can name it whatever you feel like. It's just not any naming convention I'm following right now, but you can just feel free to do whatever the names you want to give. Now, first thing is to get the instance of the Lodash library. So I will just make use of the same convention that was there in the demo, or that was there in the documentation. I will just make use of the underscore is equals to, and I say require, say Lodash. Okay, that's first thing. Now just simply check whether the Lodash is available for us over here or not. I'm just going to just call the function directly, chunk, and then what's that, chunk, and the first parameter that chunk takes is the array. So we say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, the second parameter will be the number of chunks that we want. That's it. All right, so once we've done that, we will just go on the command, execute this particular function, and see what the output is. If the output is right, we will go ahead and then make further changes so that it can be called from the .NET code. So going to the console, we will say node code. This is where my NodeServices.js file resides, and say node NodeServices.js. Nope, that's an error. Let's see what is there. Lodash underscore chunk. What's the error? Oh, so that says that the Lodash package cannot find the Lodash module. So I go back one directly back, and I say npm-i Lodash save. Okay, so this will install the Lodash for me on this particular project, for this particular project. Okay, right, so that we done. Let's go back again, say node, sorry, my bad, dot, and there we go. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So because we have 5 elements in an array, or some people will call it 4 elements in an array, 1, 2, 3, 4 were chunked together, or maybe categorized together, you can say, and then the 5, which was a lone element, will be just set as it is. Okay, so it means that our Lodash library is properly installed, and now what I want to do is to make it global so that it can be accessed from the .NET code. So for that, I will say module.exports equals to function Okay, so what I did here is that I'm calling a function callback, and then the first parameter is the array that is being passed from the .NET code to here to this particular function, and the chunk that is again being then passed from the .NET code. We'll just take a look in the moment. And then I will say callback, say null, say underscore dot chunk ARR comma chunk, and that's all we need to do in the load-service.js. Okay, nothing else needs to be happening here. Now once this is done, we will now go back to the final implementation of the controller, or final implementation where we are going to call this function from our controller class. Okay, so you go to the home controller. Okay, now I just don't want to change any of these views. I'm going to add a new view. You can select any of the views if you want to, but I'm going to add a new view over here. I go to views, home, and add a new file, call it node.cshtml. Okay, and then from the about page I'll just copy and paste the content. Okay, and just change these values as well, call it node. All right, let's make the UI look good. Something h3.result. So we're going to push or display the results over here. Say span. Inside the span I will have an h2. Oh sorry, that should h2 and that should h3. I should say h2 and that's h3. All right, now in this part I would like to display my results, so I will be using view data. The variable name will be result, and that's how it will be displayed in this part. Okay, right, so going to the home controller now, and I will add a view just like the way we have, but this time the view will be a bit different. It will be public async task I action result, and because the names of the view should match the controller action names as well, so we'll say node. And here comes the part where it makes it interesting. So node will be having the attribute called from services. Okay, and I will add here is the node services. Okay, and say node service. Okay, now this is you can see that the namespace is not being resolved, so you put your mouse over here or the cursor over here and press control dot or control period. Okay, and then select this one using ASP.NET Core.NodeServices, and that's it. You can see that this got added over here on the top. Now there are two things that to see over here. I'm using the from service and node services. So services add node service. Okay, if we go back to the startup.cs file, when I say services.add node services, and this line of code will let you get the instance of the inode services, okay, in your application. So this is the interface actually used by the ASP.NET or the .NET application to make the calls to the JS code that resides here, or which in this case will be your Node.js codes or any other JavaScript code. Okay, so this is why it's necessary, and the from service attribute is actually used to get the instance of the inode service in your action method. Okay, so this is the action method, and this gets the instance of it, and the from services also denotes that this is something which is being added into the startup.cs file in the services.add-node-services as a kind of to add services to the container of your ASP.NET application. Okay, now the simplest implementation of all, we will just mimic or we will just redo what we have done in the node-service.js file initially to test our package. We say int ARR is equals to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, int chunk is equals to 2, and then we will take a result and then say it's awaitable, because that's how it is. Say node service dot invoke async, and it's an array of array, so integer of array because this is all integer. And say now the first parameter, if you see in the IntelliSense window, is called string module name. Now I don't have a module name defined somewhere. It actually takes the paths of the Node.js file, so it would be /, code slash node dash service.js, like so. Then we say the ARR as the second parameter, and the third parameter will be our chunk that we would like to put there, right? Now, if you notice that invoke async integer is kind of a jagged array, that's because we are returning an array inside of an array. Okay, the first parameter is the file of the string, is a string value, which actually invokes the file function, which is our load dash service.js residing inside the node code folder. Second parameter is the ARR, or the array that we have passed from here, and the chunk value, which is here. So it goes inside and invokes this particular function, the callback one. Okay, so once this is done, I am going to add the data to the view data result like we have on our page, and this time I will just make a slight change to the way the data is being displayed. Right, I will use string.join because it's all integer. String.join, join on the basis of comma, and the second parameter will be the enumeration of the value, so it will be my result, the index of 0. Okay, so the output that I'm planning to see is 1 and 2, something like this should come, 1, 2, right? So this is the output that I'm planning to see. This is the output which I should see if everything goes well, and because it's an action result as a view, we just return the view. Simple, right? So that's all we have to do in order to invoke a function which resides inside your JavaScript file and which makes use of the npm or Node.js package. Right, now we're done. Let's go and say .NET build, just to make sure that we do not have any syntactical or compiler errors. It's done. We can go .NET run. Right, let's go and add, so let's put it here, localhost 5000 home/node, node, right? So 1 and 2. Now let me show you how this works in a debug environment. So I'm going to stop it here and put a debugger here and press F5. So when you press F5 in Visual Studio Code for the first time, it will set which environment you want to debug for, and you select .NET Core. It gets the file done in the launch.json file. Just make the changes that you want to do. We really don't want to make mess. If you don't know what you're doing, just close this file again and then press F5 again, and this time it will run from within the Visual Studio Code. So that's one way of debugging as well. I'm just showing you from the console. Right, just let's navigate to that particular URL again, home/node, and we hit the debug. Right, so here we got the result. Right, so I would like to show you the result in the debug mode. The reason being is very 1 and 2, and this is what the output we are seeing, result at the index of 0. Okay, so it's 1 and 2. Similarly, for the result of index of 1 will show you 3 and 4. I'm sorry, and result at the index of 2 will show you only 5. Okay, now I'm going to stop this and I'll show you some more thing. If this particular thing over here, invoke async, is of type integer, you see the values were returned in integer, right? All the values which are coming inside is the integer inside the array. If I have to make it change to string and then run it again, let's see what happens. Okay, take some time. I'll just refresh this up, and now take a look. I'm passing integer though, but the return type that we are expecting is to be a type string. So see what happens. Instead of throwing the error, it actually converts the value for me. So if you go ahead and take a look, you will see the string of type 2, and it automatically starts showing up double quotes over here. So that's one of the things that you need to keep in mind, what kind of data you want that to be returned from the function. Okay, if you mess up at this point where you planning to have the integer values but you get the string values, then you might get into the runtime errors. Okay, so that's one thing I would like to show you, that you need to keep in mind what kind of invoke return type that you want to get from the service. Okay, so that's it. I think that's what all, and that's how you make use of a Node service in your application, or in call the Node.js packages in your ASP.NET Core application. I hope this is helpful. If you have any questions, just feel free to put them in the comment section below, and I will be more than happy to answer those questions. And I'll see you next time. Cheers.